Pleasant greetings to all. Let us learn more about the agape kind of love by looking closely at the three questions posed by Jesus to Peter during a post-resurrection breakfast meeting with the apostles by the Lake of Tiberias. But here's what we shall do. First, we look at the obvious lessons in the event. Then we delve into the not-so-obvious things we find in the encounter. Only then shall we draw some very important lessons from it. We close our sharing with more questions and one answer. So first, we start by stating the obvious and the not-so-obvious lessons respectively. Are we ready? Let's go! Peter says, "Lord, why can't I follow you now? I am ready to die for you." Jesus responds by asking, "Are you really ready to die for me? I am telling you the truth. Before the rooster crows, you will say 3 times that you do not know me." Do not be worried and upset. We have always heard this rather obvious and oft-repeated explanation. Peter denied the Lord 3 times, and thus Jesus gave Peter 3 chances to affirm his love for him. Each time that Peter would profess his love, Jesus would tell him, "Attend to my lambs or my young sheep. Be a shepherd to my adult sheep and feed all my sheep." Let us examine what is not that obvious. And there are 2 items here. The first to note is this. This gospel episode is a reference to the institution of the Eucharist. This breakfast invitation of Jesus to his apostles is reminiscent of the Last Supper message of Jesus in the Gospel of John, where Jesus gives the mandate, "Love one another just as I love you." Jesus used agape to refer to this love commandment. He commands his followers to have a divine, sacrificial, totally committed love towards one another. It was also in this Last Supper context when Jesus instituted what we call the 8th sacrament of friendship, when he said, "The greatest love you can have for your friends is to give your life for them, and you are my friends if you do what I command you. I do not call you servants any longer, because servants do not know what their master is doing. Instead, I call you friends, because I have told you everything I have heard from my Father." This friendship love, as we saw in our past lecturates, is not just philia love or pagmamahal. This is pag-ibig or sacramental friendship, that kind of love which is the proper context of agape love. That Last Supper agape command is being tested in this breakfast meal episode by the Lake Tiberias. Jesus wants to find out if Peter, at least, to whom he handed the keys of the church, has grown into an agape person. The second not-so-obvious thing is this. In the original Greek of John's account, twice Jesus asked Peter, "Simon Yona, agapas me plaion tuton lege?" Notice the verb used in the first 2 questions, the verb agapas. Jesus was asking Peter something like this: "Peter, do you love me in an agape way? Is your love in the 4th stage or the pananahan stage, the unconditional kind of love?" And to these first 2 questions, Peter's reply was, "Nai kyrie su oides hoti philose." In free English interpretation, Peter was responding consistently with something like this: "Yes, Lord, I love you with a philia or pagmamahal kind of love. I am fond of you. I value and esteem you with a 2nd stage kind of love." And finally, on the 3rd time, in a very dramatic way, Jesus reached down and took the little love that Peter had by asking him, "Simon Yona, philes me." Translated freely into English, Jesus finally seemed to ask Peter, "Okay, Simon, giving me what you've got, do you really value and esteem me with your stage 2 kind of love?" To which, for the 3rd time, Peter could have responded only with sadness in this way: "Yes, Lord, I am still in stage 2. That was why I am sorry to have denied you 3 times. I am so sorry, my Lord. Did you catch the big fish? In English and even in all Tagalog translations, some big fish is lost in the water. Why? Because in the English translation from the original Greek, only one word, one verb form is used 3 times. Love. In the Tagalog translations, the mahal mo ba ako and iniibig mo ba ako questions are used interchangeably. Like there was no difference between the two words philia and agape. Of course, there's a big difference right there. And that difference is the not so obvious thing that I wanted you to see. So, let us now quickly draw out some lessons from this encounter. So, what do these dialogues tell us? These tell us 3 important lessons. First is that agape indeed has the power to transform all desires or paghahangad, philia or pagmamahal, and sacramental friendships or pag-ibig into agape love or pananahan love. The second lesson is that in the hands of God, no love is too little or too small to give. As Jesus bends low to acquiesce to Thomas's desire to touch his Good Friday marks in order to save Thomas's faith, so Jesus too goes down the level of Peter's love to meet his love where it is, to bring it to the heights of pure, unconditional, sacrificial love. And the third lesson is this: one has to show one's remorse for one's sins, not by emotions, nor by simply desiring to change. As we already know, God just does not reward the desirous. One has to prove sorrow for sins. How? By actions. Hence, Peter was not told to weep for his sin of denying Jesus. Rather, he was told to serve, to lead, to guide, to feed all of Jesus' sheep. This life of service too will ensure Peter's constant connection to Jesus, since Jesus is always present in his sheep. He is, after all, the Good Shepherd. This connectedness to Jesus, agape love himself, through availability to, service of, and communion with the community, is what will nurture the growth of Peter's pagmamahal into pananahan, or the 1 Corinthians 13 kind of agape love. What about you, my friends? Should Jesus ask you now, "Do you love me, my child?" How would you respond? In our love relationships, many of us may have pondered at one time or another, bakit ganon? Mas iniibig ko siya kaysa sa pag-ibig niya para sa akin. Why does that happen? My love for him or her seems much more than her or his love for me. Okay, while that is a painfully valid question based on an irrefutable personal observation, the answer is not so direct. It is rather oblique. And let me answer that by saying, well, that happens. But it is only a phase. The agape person should lead the other non-agape person to the heights of agape love. Let me repeat that. The agape person should lead the other non-agape person to the heights of agape love. Now, what if he or she could not lead the person to love in an agape way? Well, the only person who stands to lose so much in the relationship is the person who decides to stay in the philia kind of love. Why? Because he or she has not absorbed yet the commitment, or in the vernacular, the kasasigatan, the consciousness or kamalayan sa sarili, the sigasig or the passion, and the katapatan or fidelity to love even in anonymity. The philia kind of person will always be tempted to look for somebody who is as non-committed and non-committal as herself or himself. Meanwhile, the agape person will continue loving unconditionally. He or she will never give up easily, no matter what. Well, in marital relationships, mind you, this can be very problematic because you are not in the same page. Many marriages end up bitterly, and they hide this glaring philia stubbornness and fixation with the all-encompassing term, in quotes, irreconcilable differences. And in the end, who are the most affected victims? Of course, the lovers themselves, and worst, their children. There is a constant need to renew our minds about our sense of responsibility and sacrifice. The journey to agape requires responsibility and sacrifice. Of course, we can journey through life with just responsibility and sacrifice, as some atheists claim, without God. And why not? But mind you, it will be full of meaningless thorns, sufferings, and pains. But if we journey with God through all these relationship steps leading to agape, then these thorns acquire different meanings, as it did for Saint Peter when finally he had to offer his life for Christ. What better way to lead a non-agape lover to the doors of agape love than to go the way, the truth, and the life of agape love himself, right? Jean Baptiste Alphonse Carr, a French novelist, once remarked, "Some people are always grumbling because roses have thorns. I am thankful that thorns have roses." Beautiful. But let me tell you this. Be thankful instead, my friends, that thorns are the crown that adorned the holy head of agape. In your faith life, in your love life, are you not in the agape way of loving yet? May God bless our hearts with His agape love. Amen.